Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. What? Nothing. Anyway, it is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be Zeyde's Story Corner. That's right, Zeyde's Story Corner. So, we are taking a break from the tales of Rabbi Nachman, which requires some thought because there's a lot of mystical meaning behind those stories. And we decided to take a break and to read just some funny stories, just to get everybody's mind off of what's going on in the world. I think everybody really needs a break from it, and so we're going to be telling the stories from the book, The Silly World of Helm. As you all know, that Helm is it actually is an actual real city that actually did exist. It was actually a very prosperous city, and somehow it got attached to these tales that actually came out of Yiddish tales out of Germany and kind of got planted in Helm after Helm started to decline as a major trading port. So a lot of information. Yes, yeah, well, okay, it is. Probably not very interesting. Well, I think it's interesting. But anyway, so we are going to continue with our stories of Helm. And let's see who we have in the chat room. We have David. We have Kat and David. We have Veronica. Marshall is with us. Miriam is with us. Geketa, Kelsey Lynn, and let's see. It looks about like it. Others not in the chat. Yeah, there's others that are watching who are not in the chat room, and so we're glad to have all of you here, whether you're in the chat room or not. So I guess we should go ahead and get started, if you please. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll get you, number one, we'll get you on your camera. And there I am. Okay, just as promised. Okay, now if the camera will behave, we will continue on with these stories from the silly world of Helm. Okay. So, we are going to start out tonight with the story, How to Succeed in Business. Okay. In the little village of Helm, which actually was not that little. Anyway, Helm was known throughout the world as a place where not so many brilliant people lived. So it came as no surprise when Mendel decided to go into the business as a bagel maker, even though he had never made a bagel in his life. For years, poor Mendel would work all night long making his bagels, and then at the crack of dawn, he would be in the center of the village square selling his wares, or his bagels, whichever. Rain or shine, Mendel the bagel baker was always in the heart of the village selling bagels to his local customers. No matter who purchased a bagel from him, he would always cry, "Thank you for buying, but every bagel I sell, I lose money." Now, this went on for years. And since Mendel always looked poverty-stricken, everyone believed it was so. One day, as the old sage of Helm was walking through the village, he heard Mendel shouting at the top of his lungs, "Bagels for sale! Below wholesale cost! Fresh bagels for sale!" The old sage approached Mendel and asked to buy a dozen bagels. "Ah, dear sage," sighed Mendel, as he leaned over into his basket to gather up the bagels. "Please, take only 6. You see, I lose money on every bagel I sell. So if you take fewer bagels, I will lose less." What? That's what it says in the story. Okay, anyway. The old sage looked at him strangely. "Yeah, I'll bet he did." "I don't understand," he exclaimed. "You stay up all night making these delicious bagels, then stand on this corner until all hours of the day to sell them, and you sell them for less than what it costs you to make? Why do you sell them for so little?" "I have to sell them for less to compete with the competition," Mendel sighed. "But no one else in Helm sells bagels," said the sage. "Ah, that's just it," sighed Mendel. "What if they did?" Seriously, that's what the story says. My goodness. Okay. Oh, Soshi is here with us too. Sorry I missed you. Okay. This is a good one. This one is called Ivan the Terrible. Okay. In the little village of Helm, a community of good but mostly foolish souls, lived Ivan, the harness maker. The villagers also knew him as Ivan the Terrible because he was selfish, arrogant, and a mean old-timer. And so, as the years passed on, it was no great loss to the villagers that Ivan too passed on. Now, Ivan had no family, so when it came time to bury the old harness maker, a group of wealthy citizens of Helm decided to pay for the funeral expenses. Just about the time Ivan passed on, the great sage of Helm happened to be in another village quite a distance away. "Who will we get to conduct the service and say the eulogy?" they asked. It was decided to obtain the services of Rabbi Chaim from the nearby village of Melch. The community of Melch was sort of I guess you say, a suburb of Helm. And so also it had its share of foolish souls. So when the Rabbi of Melch was called to do the honors, he readily accepted, even though he did not know a thing about the selfish Ivan the harness maker. Reb Chaim arrived in Helm and went to this small shul. He quickly noticed how well dressed the mourners were and immediately thought that there would be a handsome gift to take back to his little community if he did a good job. Indeed, this must be a wealthy community, he thought to himself, looking at all the finery of the villagers. They must also be very thoughtful community to bury someone who is not even related. Indeed, they must also be a charitable group. Therefore, if I extol the virtues of the dear old harness maker, I am certain they will honor me with a large gift for our shul in Melech. And so he began to eulogize old Ivan the Terrible, a selfish character who never gave a cent to charity, knowing absolutely nothing about Ivan. He began to talk of the wonderful things Ivan must have done in his lifetime. He must have been a man loved by everyone, the rabbi went on. Here before us is a generous, charitable person. Now, he went on for nearly 2 hours, extolling the virtues of Ivan. The more he lauded the selfish Ivan, the more he thought he would get. Finally, as his oratory drew to a close, Yankel the farmer turned to Yitzhak the tailor and whispered, "Yitzhak, do me a favor. Walk over and see if we are burying the right person." Okay. It's a good one. I like that one. Okay, so now we go on to Nahum the water carrier. Okay. The people who lived in the silly world of Helm were not the brightest people. I think we have established that. Not only by the book, but because of the rabbi's relatives. Hey. I thought we weren't going to get onto that subject again. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to explain to the people. Let's just go on with the stories, would you please? Okay. Don't be so touchy about it. You should be very proud that your family comes from hell. They don't come from hell. Do we need to go over this story again? No, never mind. Let's just go on with the story. Okay, so the people who lived in the silly world of Helm were not the brightest people. Quit looking at me. Oh, no, okay. But they lived in harmony and peace with each other. That is, of course, except on those occasions when there was a dispute, usually when a stranger would find his way to their town. So, let me give you an example. One day, Nahum the water carrier was coming from the well. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, a man ran up to him and knocked him to the ground. Before he could recover, the man kicked him repeatedly. "Take that, you scoundrel! Take that, you bum! Mare, you are the world's worst creature! Take that, and that!" Finally, when the stranger stopped, Nahum smiled back. The stranger grew angry. You mean you can still smile after such a beating, you scoundrel? Nachum continued smiling as he brushed himself off. My friend, I am not laughing because you gave me a beating. I am laughing because the joke is on you. You see, I am Nachum, the water carrier, not Meir, the tailor who lives down the road. No, you will have to give him a beating. All your time and effort on beating on me was in vain. You see, the joke's on you. Really. Okay, so this was a very good one. You probably like this one. Yes, I do. I do actually like this one a lot. Okay, so this one is called Naming a Baby. Okay. Once upon a time, in the silly world of Helm, Mendel the tailor and his wife were blessed with a baby boy. Everyone came to congratulate him. Mazel tov, they shouted. May the child be as wise as the parents, another shouted. Everyone was so thrilled. Then the moment of truth arrived. What shall we call our new son? Mendel's wife asked. What kind of a question is that? Mendel replied. The child is to be named after my late father Chaim. His wife started to shout, No, you don't. He will be named after my father Chaim. No. I wouldn't have a son around my house named after Chaim, the horse thief. My father was at least an honorable man, continued Mendel. The child will be named after my father Chaim, and that is final. Well, by this time, the townspeople began to gather. What difference does it make? Both names are Chaim, they said. What difference does it make? Shouted Mendel. I want everyone to know my son is named after an honorable man, not a horse thief. The argument flared. Finally, they went to the house of the sage of Helm. Tell us, scented wise man. Her father's name was Chaim, but he was a horse thief. My father's name was Chaim, but he was a scholar and honorable man. Who should get the honor? The sage of Helm thought for a few minutes. That's my thinking face. Okay. And then he decided. The child will be named Chaim. And the decision as to whose father he is named after will be made by the child himself in the years to come. If he is a horse thief, then he will be known he was named after your wife's father. If he turns out to be a scholar and an honorable man, we will know that he was named after your father. Everyone cheered and marveled at the great wisdom of the sage of Helm. Okay. Oh, David has joined us. David, good to see you. I hope you and your mother are well. Okay. So, this one is called Unbecoming Wise. Mendel, who ran the butcher shop in Helm, wanted to become a great wise man, like the old sage. Possibly, he thought, it could help him be a better butcher. How, he didn't know, but he was pretty sure it couldn't hurt. The problem was, you see, there weren't many smart people in Helm. But he heard that in Minsk that there was someone who could teach him everything he needed to know to make him wise. When he arrived in Minsk, he immediately began to look for the wise-making school. He asked everyone he saw, but all they did was laugh. Finally, he went to visit the local butcher and explained why he was in the city. As soon as Chaim, the butcher of Minsk, heard Mendel was willing to pay to become wise, he told him he could give him lessons. "See if you can answer this riddle," said Chaim. Mendel listened carefully. "Now, how many eggs can a rich person eat on an empty stomach?" Chaim asked. Mendel thought for a few seconds and said, 3 eggs. Chaim smiled and replied, "See, that is the difference between a wise man like myself and someone who is not so wise. The answer is not 3 eggs, but 1 egg. You see, after a rich person eats 1 egg, his stomach is not empty anymore." Mendel shook his head from side to side and was thrilled with this great insight. He quickly returned to Helm and ran to the house of the old sage. "I have become wise, and now more people will want to buy from my butcher shop." "It is wonderful," said the old sage. "How do you know you have become wise?" "I will ask you a riddle, and you will see." The sage sighed. "So go ahead and ask me the riddle." Mendel began. "How many eggs can a rich man eat on an empty stomach?" The old sage shrugged his shoulders and innocently said, "Maybe 4 eggs." Mendel beamed. "Wrong! If you had said 3 eggs, I could have said the right answer, which is 1 egg. But you did not give me the proper response. It must be that I am even more wise than you." And so it was that the old sage of Helm realized that Mendel was still just like the other people in Helm. He sent him back to the butcher's shop with instructions to keep all of his great knowledge to himself. Okay. Okay, we take one more story, and then we go take a break, and then we return, okay? Is okay with you? Okay. This story is called Rich Man, Poor Man. In the tiny village of Helm. Why did they always say it's a tiny village? It was not tiny. It was actually quite large. Anyway, In the tiny village of Helm, there was once a rich man. He would walk through the streets of Helm with a scowl on his face, and he always seemed unhappy. In the same little village there was a very poor cobbler. The little cobbler would sit in front of his house every day, mending shoes for the few kopecks people would give him. One day, the rich man went to the sage of Helm. "Tell me, O wise man," he began, "once upon a time I was a poor man and lived with my wife and children in a tiny house. We were so happy and enjoyed all the blessings of life, like the poor cobbler I see every day. He is very poor, yet he whistles joyously every day, and he always has a smile on his face. But me," he continued, "I have all the money any man could want. I have a fine house with servants and everything a person could want. Yet I am unhappy. I don't trust anyone because I fear they want to steal my money. Tell me, O wise man, how is it that now I have everything and I am so unhappy?" The old wise sage took the rich man to a closed window and said, "Look out the window and tell me what you see." The rich man walked to the window and then said softly, "I see trees and grass, children playing, people going to and from the market. Why?" The old sage then took the rich man by the hand and led him to a mirror. "Now, look here and tell me what you see." The rich man was puzzled, but he looked straight ahead into the mirror and said, "Dear sage, I see nothing but myself. Why do you ask me to do these things?" The old sage smiled and said, "Because this is the key to your unhappiness. A few seconds ago, you looked through a piece of glass and saw life as it is, with all the pleasantness that goes with it. Then I took you before a mirror, which is also a piece of glass. But once a little silver is added, all we could see was ourselves." The rich man smiled and understood. He walked from the rabbi's house and began distributing wealth to the poor, leaving only enough to guarantee security for his wife and family. Okay, that was a lovely story. Okay, so we are going to take our break now, and when we return, we shall continue with the story of the accountant. So please, everybody stay tuned, and we'll be back in 6 minutes.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy, the chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as promised. Okay. So, this story is called The Accountant. Once upon a time, in the little village of Helm, Shipsil, the son of Yankel, the farmer, returned home from the big city university. It was really a major celebration because never before had the village of Helm had the honor of having a full-fledged university-educated accountant in their midst. After the celebration, Yonkel decided to take his son Shepzel into his cheese-making business. Since I manufacture all the cheese for the villagers of Helm and ship cheese to all the big cities, I think it is now time for me to use your professional services, beamed the uncle. Shipsil was pleased. He sat down with all the papers and the books his father had accumulated over the years. After a few days of looking through the tiny scraps of paper, he turned to his father and said, "Papa, I don't understand. You provide everyone in the village of Helm with cheese. You even send cheese to the big cities. But your bookkeeping system is impossible. I have been poring over these papers for days, and I can't make heads nor tails out of this mess." The old man listened intently. "Papa, from these papers it is impossible to determine who owes you money and who you owe money to. I have no idea how much stock you have, and even what it costs you to produce a single piece of cheese." "No," exclaimed the uncle. "This is bad?" "Bad!" exclaimed his son. "Of course it's bad. You may be charging less for the cheese than it costs you to produce it. Or you may be charging far more for your cheese than you should. In fact, there is no way of knowing whether you are even earning a profit. Really, how do you know how much profit you have earned since you went into business?" The old man stroked his beard pensively. "Well, my son," he said, "when I started this business some 40 years ago, I simply had 1 cow, 1 acre of land, and a tiny hut. Now, I have a herd of over 100 cows. I own more than 100 acres of land. I have a beautiful house, 3 wonderful sons, all of whom have gone to university, one a doctor, the other a lawyer, and you an accountant." "But, Papa," exclaimed his son, "I repeat, how do you know how much profit you have made since you went into business?" The old man shrugged. "That is simple. To figure out my profit, I simply subtract the 1 cow, 1 acre, and the little hut and Schonen. All the rest is my profit." The son nodded knowingly. So, from that day on, Accountants in the village of Helm have never bothered to ask any more questions. After all, how difficult is it to figure out a man's profit? After all you have to do is subtract what he started with, and schon, what is left is profit. Pretty simple, huh? Okay. I don't know how much that works in the real world, but hey, it seems to make sense to me. Okay. This story is called The Adventurers. Once upon a time, in the little village of Helm, Motel and his wife Hannah decided to visit the big city of Minsk. It was their 50th wedding anniversary, and they wanted to see some of the new miracle inventions everyone in Helm was talking about. Model was not too worldly, and his little wife was always in awe of him. So when they came to the biggest hotel in Minsk, complete with a revolving door and elevator, this became a point of amazement. Model sat in the lobby of the hotel opposite the elevators. He saw that people walked into the tiny room, and then suddenly the doors closed. And in a few moments, the door opened again, and much younger people came out. This must truly be a miracle chamber, Mutl said to Hannah. Suddenly he got an idea. My dear Hannah, he said, how many times have you prayed to God that he should make you young again? Hannah blushed. Well, here is your opportunity. I love you very much, and that is why I am willing to share my observations with you. Now, notice how an older person walks into that little room, then the door closes, and apparently they say some bracha, and then the door is open, and out comes the same person, maybe 20 or 30 years younger. While we are here, why not take advantage of this miracle device? Hannah beamed. So here is my plan. You will go into the little room. Wait until the doors close. Then pray to become whatever age you want. And then, when the doors open, you will have what you always dreamed of. Almost eternal youth. Hannah smiled uneasily. Mother led her to the elevator. The doors opened, and she entered. Suddenly the doors closed. Model stepped back and waited with anticipation. Will she still have black hair? He asked himself. Or maybe she will have blonde hair, just as she had 50 years ago when I met her. As he thought to himself, the elevator doors suddenly opened. But lo, and behold, there was no young lady, nor was there an old lady, nor was there even Hannah. There was nothing but a little gray cat. Gewalt! Shouted Muzzle, as he bent down to pick up the cat. Hannah, you must have said the wrong bracha. But listen, If this is what has happened, we must return quickly to Helm and ask the old sage what we must do. For how could you, as a cat, prepare my meals or do my laundry? How will it look to the children? Let us return to Helm immediately. He picked up the little cat and ran to catch the next wagon back to Helm. The wagon raced out of town with Mottel clutching the little creature, crying. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, Hannah, more confused than ever, finally returned to the first floor. When she walked off the elevator, she looked for Mottel, but he was nowhere to be found. In desperation, she decided to return to Helm on the next wagon. Meanwhile, Mottel's wagon reached Helm. He pulled up in front of the house of the old sage. "Oh, great wise man, I need your help." The old man smiled and said, "Yes, tell me your problem. By the way, it is a very nice cat that you have there. What do you call her?" "That's why I'm here to see you," Mottel explained in tears. "We went to Minsk to celebrate our anniversary," Mottel began. "Then we went to this big building and saw a very special room. Old people stepped into this tiny room, and in a few seconds, young people came out. It was truly a miracle. In seconds, they lost years. So I thought, what better present could I get for my darling wife Hannah? So I put her in the little room, and in a few seconds, when the door opened, this is what happened to my sweet wife Hannah. My Hannah was turned into a cat." The old sage listened intently. "Now," pleaded Mottel, "my question to you is, can you change her back into my dear old wife? I will never, ever consider having her young again." As Mottel spoke, the old sage listened unbelievingly, and he was convinced that his dear friend had gone mad. "Let me get you a glass of tea to calm you." The sage went into the kitchen. As his wife prepared the tea, he told her the fantastic story. The old sage returned to the room, carrying the tea on a tray. "My dear Mottel," the old sage began, "you have told me an incredible story. I must have time to think." As the old sage spoke, he glanced out the window just in time to see Mottel's wife climbing down from a wagon and heading for the back door leading to his kitchen. As Mottel sipped the tea with tears in his eyes, his confused little wife went to the back door of the old sage's home. She sat in the kitchen with the rebbitzin of the old sage and told her how her husband had put her in a little room in the big city and then ran away. Back in the living room, the old sage now knew what to do. "All right, give me your little Hannah who has turned into a cat, and I will try to perform a miracle." He picked up the cat and went into the kitchen. He handed the cat to his wife and led Hannah back into the room with Mottel. When Mottel saw his wife, He beamed with joy. "You are indeed a miracle man," he said to the old sage. The old-timers were so happy to be reunited once more. They didn't ask any questions. They simply walked out the door smiling. No sooner had they left than the Rebbitzin of the old sage came into the living room, looked at her husband, and questioned, "My dear husband, please tell me before I burst, if this cat is not Hannah, then Drachen, who is it?" "How should I know?" sighed the sage. "Was I in Minsk?" Okay. Maybe we have time for one more, okay? I hope you are all enjoying these stories. It's a good way to take your mind off of all the craziness out there in the world, just to sit back and listen and laugh. Okay. This is the story of the adventures of Conkle and Mongkol. Such names they give these people, huh? Once upon a time, in the silly world of Helm, there lived a simple couple. There was Conkle and his wife Mongkol. One day, Conkle said to his wife, "My dear wife Mongkol, wouldn't it be nice if we could afford a fine piece of cake?" "Indeed, it would, my dear husband," said Mongkol. "But as you well know, I perform a small miracle every day when I prepare even a simple meal, because I barely have enough coins to buy food for the table." Conkle sighed. I know, my dear wife. All I said was, wouldn't it be nice if we had a fine piece of cake?" Mongkol laughed. "In order for us to have a fine piece of cake, we would need money with which to buy the ingredients. If we only had the money, I could buy everything tomorrow." "Just a minute," shouted Conkle. "If each of us were to give up a single coin each week, we could save enough to buy the ingredients. Here, let me explain. In the attic, there is an old trunk on wheels. It is a very large trunk, and we really never use it. After all, where do we ever go? Now, if I cut a small slit in the top of the trunk, and each week each of us dropped one coin into the trunk, in no time we will have so many coins in the trunk that we will have enough for 10 cakes. Since the trunk is on wheels, all we would have to do is move it to the store and get everything we need." Mongkol was overjoyed. "What a wonderful idea! Why don't we do it this way? Every Friday, each of us will drop one coin in. I think that would be a wonderful idea, and in no time we will have enough money." Sure enough, when the first Friday arrived, Conkle and Mongkol went to the trunk in the attic. Conkle reached in his pocket, took out a coin, and deposited it into the huge trunk on wheels. Mongkol reached into her apron, took out a coin, and also dropped it into the huge trunk. "What a wonderful idea," they both said. Conkle then left for shul, while Mongkol lit her Shabbos candles. As Conkle walked to the shul, he thought to himself, "I am a fool. Why should I drop a coin in the trunk every week when I can certainly use that coin for a little tobacco I buy to indulge myself? My faithful wife, Mongkol, will drop her coin in the trunk every week, and in no time there will be more than enough money for a fine piece of cake. Besides, dear Mongkol does not smoke, so she could certainly spare the coin better than I could." Meanwhile, Mongkol was back at the home, admiring the flickering Shabbos candles. She said to herself, "Conkle is a loyal soul, and I am certain he will drop his coin into the trunk each week because he does so want a piece of cake. Therefore, why should I bother to scrimp from the food I put on the table? Why should I put a coin in the trunk each week? Besides, he is the one who wants the cake. His weekly contributions will more than make his wish come true." Well, as a result, neither Conkle nor Mongkol put any more than that one coin each in the trunk. A number of weeks passed. One day Conkle announced, "Mongkol, my dear wife, I think the time has come for us to open the trunk and remove the coins so that we can purchase all the things necessary to begin baking the fine cake." His wife agreed. They went up to the attic, turned the key in the old trunk lock, raised the lid. "Go out!" shouted Conkle. "We have been robbed! There are only 2 coins in the trunk." Mongkol leaned over the trunk and confirmed that the trunk was indeed empty, except for the 2 lonely coins that lay at the bottom. "Wasn't it a strange thief?" Conkle declared. "He took all but 2 coins from the trunk. I have never heard of such a thief." Then she said sharply, "Conkle, my dear husband, tell me the truth. Did you place a coin in this trunk every single week?" Conkle looked down at the floor and sighed. "Alas, dear wife, I did not. But tell me, how come the coins that you were supposed to put in the trunk are not there either?" Mongkol lowered her eyes and admitted she too did not drop any coins in the trunk. "Oh!" shouted Conkle. "So you took me for a fool!" "And you took me for a fool!" shouted Mongkol as she grabbed a broom and began swinging it at Conkle. She swung the broom so hard that Conkle fell into the trunk. As she leaned over to help him out, she lost her balance and fell into the trunk with Conkle, and the lid slammed shut. As Conkle and Mongkol continued to argue, the trunk, on well-oiled wheels, began to roll. It rolled out of the attic door, bounced down the stairs to the living room, and out into the streets of Helm. With Conkle still fighting with Mongkol, it was indeed a strange sight to see. Here was a huge trunk bouncing along the street with strange sounds coming from in it. "It must be demons," shouted passerbys. "Indeed, it must be ghosts," said another. Women screamed and pulled their children to safety as the old trunk continued to bump along down the street. Finally, the old trunk came to a halt in front of the home of the old sage, the wisest man in Helm. The old sage took a hammer and opened the trunk. There was Conkle and Mongkol still arguing. The old sage raised his hands and ordered that they stop fighting. "It's his fault," shouted Mongkol. "It's her fault," shouted Conkle. The old sage managed to quiet them down. He listened to their story, then called a meeting of the town's elders. And so all the wise men of Helm thought and thought. Finally they reached a decision. Conkle and Mongkol were asked to come before the tribunal. "We have evaluated the facts in your case very carefully," they declared, "and have now reached a decision we feel shall prevent such outrageous conduct in the future. It is our decision that from now on, every door to an attic must be closed when anyone opens a trunk that has wheels. Secondly, wheels are never to be placed under a trunk in which two people can fit. Thirdly, a trunk is never to be used to save coins. And fourthly, both of you are fined 2 coins for all the trouble that you have caused our community." In order to celebrate the clever decision voiced by the wise men of Helm, a huge party was ordered, and everyone was given a fine piece of cake, the very kind of cake Conkle had wanted in the first place. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the stories tonight. Don't forget the Torah study on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. and Kabbalat and Marariv Shabbat service on Friday at 8 p.m. and Shachrit and Musaf on Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. all Eastern. Until the next time, my dear friends, we shall simply say, Laila Tov.